GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Hey, this is Deborah Voorhees from Friday the 13th, Part 5. I played Tina. Garden Shears Through the Eyes, you might remember. You are listening to Robbie Vegas with All Bets Are Off.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is the rockstar Robbie Vegas with a brand new episode of the All Bets Are Off podcast. And today we have Tony Merkel on the show, host of the Confessionals podcast, which you may or may not have heard me on. If you haven't, go check it out, about my paranormal experiences and running with Bigfoot on a wrestling road trip. And Tony is huge in the paranormal field. If you are into podcasts, he is talking to people left and right. They have insane stories. Some of them are just completely mind-blowing and amazing, and it's such a popular, awesome show. He's a great host, so I know that this interview is going to be fantastic because I listen to him all the time. So make sure you guys are checking that out and subscribing to his podcast. Most of my listeners probably already do. And we're going to get into his YouTube channel, which you will see a Dogman expedition that he went on, and I won't give too much away about it because I want Tony to tell you guys about it. So let's not waste any time, and let's get Tony on the line.
Hey everybody, this is Lauren Marie Taylor, creator and host of the Not the Final Girl podcast. Okay, so every horror fan remembers the final girl, right? You know, the one who can outrun and outsmart the Jasons, the Michaels, the Chuckies. I think you get it. But what about the girls and, the guys who met with an untimely end? Those of us who were tortured and tripped, dragged and killed. Don't we deserve some props? As Vicky in Friday the 13th Part 2 and Sheila in Girls Night Out, I know what a drag it is to succumb to those masked and wardrobe-challenged killers, to not be the final girl. On my new podcast, I'll be chatting with other women of horror who share the same fate. Special guests include those final girls as well as the writers and directors who created our characters, only to give us an early expiration date. And if they play nice, we'll let some of those crazed killers of horror tell their side of the story. So join me, Lauren Marie Taylor, on the Not the Final Girl podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you get the alerts when the episodes drop. Thanks for listening. Keep your doors locked and stay out of the woods.
Alright, Tony, so first thing I want to do is not only thank you for being here on my show, but re-thank you for having me on yours. So this is cool that we get to do a little crossover here.
Absolutely, man. Thanks, man. This is something that we should have done, I don't know, a few months ago, and I had to keep on delaying it. COVID sucks.
I know, man. But we're here now, and everything's good, and I have a bunch of questions for you, my friend, so you are not the one asking questions today.
Sounds good.
So, first of all, before I even ask you anything about the Confessionals or paranormal or anything like that, does it feel weird being the one on the receiving end of the questions?
No. I actually enjoy this because on my show, if I get too yacky, I get bad emails saying, let the person talk. So now it's nice because it's my turn to talk.
Fair enough. So tell me, what inspired you to start the Confessionals podcast?
Well, I was always interested in the topic of paranormal, cryptozoology, and all those kind of things. And then in the early stages of a Facebook group I had that was growing, I decided to start a YouTube channel where I would just share my thoughts on Bigfoot. And from doing that, I believe this is how it worked out. Mm-hmm. My friend from Sasquatch Chronicles, Wes Germer, contacted me out of the blue one day. I was literally driving my truck, backing into my terminal to end my day, mm-hmm. and he just, I've never talked to the guy in my entire life. He calls me on Facebook Messenger on video, and we talked for like 45 minutes, getting to know each other and stuff. And during that conversation, he encouraged me to start a podcast, and that kind of gave me the, I guess, confidence, I would say, to really push towards the podcast thing. I already had it in my mind, but him giving me that encouragement really kind of pushed me over the edge, and I was just off and running at that point.
Well, that's excellent. And your podcast, I told you this before, is one of my favorites, and I can listen to it nonstop. And it encompasses all of paranormal and cryptozoology. Like, you really don't leave anything out. So when it came time to start the podcast, how did you go about finding people who were willing to talk about their paranormal experiences?
Yeah, I just went with whoever, like, so in the beginning, I ran up a list of people that, to be honest with you, I never even made it halfway through that list. There was people like Ron Moorhead I've never had on my show. He was on that list. But there were people that I knew of that were well known, but there were also people that I knew of just from my online interactions that I've had conversations with, that I knew they had an experience with the paranormal, or they saw a UFO or Bigfoot. And I just made a list of people, and I started reaching out to them. And, some would say yeah, and some would not even answer my emails. But yeah, it got the ball rolling. And I think I made it probably like a month or two just off of dropping an episode once a week from the list that I had created. Mm-hmm. And then the emails started coming in, because right away on the show I was telling people to email me if you have a story you want to share on the show. And people started emailing. I in the beginning, I would just basically, I think my show was dropping on Saturdays in the beginning, and I would right around Thursday start, reaching out to somebody like, hey, you want to come on the show? I got your email. There was no organization. And then my wife, like, she looked at my emails and she's like, do you realize you're missing a lot of people in here that emailed you? I was like, no, I didn't know that. And so she kind of took over the emails early on and social media and really helped create organization. And once she did that, oh my gosh, the list got huge and it was just off and running. I mean, now, like, for years now, I haven't had a really... I sometimes I reach out to people that I find interesting, that I come across or something, but most of the time people contact me, and I'm willing to talk to anybody from any point of life and any kind of worldview or perspective and any kind of paranormal cryptid experience. Like, I don't really box the show in a whole lot. And so as long as it's on the topic of paranormal, even conspiracy sometimes, but we got to be careful of that these days. So I kind of really stay on the fence with that one. But it's been really cool seeing how the show has grown.
So what actually brought you into the paranormal, though? Was it an experience you had? Was it like haunting? Was it UFO? Was it a Bigfoot encounter? Like, did you experience something that brought you so, like, into the field, so to speak?
I would say no. There was just a general interest, and it's been there my whole life. I've always been interested in the creepy monsters, like the Loch Ness Monster. Me and my friends were always talking about going and finding it and stuff when we were little kids. There was always this fascination with the mysterious, the unknown. And as I got older and stuff, that kind of stuff got put aside. But I got married young, and when I got married at 21, I was driving truck, and life was kind of getting boring because we couldn't do anything. We were broke. And so, I just needed something in my life that kept me entertained, I guess. And I remember I started watching the TV show Monster Quest. I think it was on History Channel.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I was just like, oh my gosh, I remember all this stuff. Like, I just, like, I just forgot about it, but I started remembering all this fascination I had, and I couldn't get enough of that show. I was looking, every time it was on, I was watching it, and I was trying to find, clips online. And then one morning I was watching Monster Quest before work, and I was like, I wonder if there's any kind of like radio or something like that to listen to while I'm driving. And then I found the world of podcasting. I was like, holy crap. But yeah, it was just it was really a progression for me throughout my life of just a fascination. Now, I've had experiences. I have experiences that I don't even remember until I'm in conversation with somebody. I'm like, oh, that's right, I remember that now. It's so weird. I don't know if everybody's like this, but I know with talking with people on my show, a lot of times people, they experience something. The first time I heard about this was with UFOs. Like, people would have an experience with a UFO and they don't remember the experience till years later. And it tends to not just be UFOs, though. There's people that just have experiences and they just kind of forget about it. And that's me. I don't even know if it's paranormal. It doesn't feel paranormal. I just have a hard time remembering these things. But I do have, experiences throughout my life that kind of, I probably wouldn't want them again, but it definitely made me aware of this other side of reality that kind of launched me into this mess that I'm in now. So.
Now, do you prefer like a certain kind of story, or like what intrigues you the most? Are you more into the cryptids, the hauntings, the UFOs? Like, what really sticks out to you when you're talking to a guest and you're like, oh, this is going to be great?
It's a progression for me. It's really depending on what mood I'm in, and where I'm at in my life when you catch me, kind of thing. Because if I'm more in a philosophical, theological, spiritual mindset, because everybody goes through seasons of life, right? So at least for me, I do. And so if I'm in a season of life where I'm really focusing on my personal spiritual progression in life and things, I tend to lean towards more of wanting to talk to people who have had the, demonic, scary, ghostly type experiences, because I guess my mindset's in that frame of mind. But then, there's other, like during the summertime, if I'm doing a lot of hiking, I'm like, oh man, Dogman, I want to freaking talk to somebody that had a Dogman experience. So there's just a lot of progression when it comes to that. But I would say, like, right now, I'm very interested in how do I say this? I'm very interested in parallel universes, parallel dimensions, and the reality of them. I'm interested in the idea of accessing them and how that can be done, and what all does that entail. I think it entails a lot of the topics I cover, and more than people are comfortable with. In these communities, you have people who, just take the classic Bigfoot. I mean, they're into Bigfoot, but they don't want to touch the idea that Bigfoot could be anything other than a hairy monster walking through the woods that we can't keep up with.
Right.
And and when it comes to like the idea of portals and the parallel dimensions and stuff, I think that we exclude a lot of topics that we don't want to touch on that because it makes us feel uncomfortable. So I'm really kind of into that right now. I'm dropping documentaries, a documentary on Dogman next month, and so like my mindset's kind of gearing up again towards the next adventure of hunting a monster. So I could see my interest going there again. I was just talking to Lindsay, my wife, about this today actually, and I can really talk about anything. I can really sit and enjoy a good conversation about anything. And I noticed that when I get emails from people and they're telling me their experience, the more they try to tell me, like sell me on the experience, almost like not sell me, but like just this is what happened, and just a very clear image of what they went through, the more excited I am to talk to them. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just there's times that I'll get emails from people that are so general, but I know like the topic could be good, but I just don't really know where we're going. It's hard to kind of get up for that interview because like I don't know where we're going with this. We're just going to have a conversation and see what's up. But when somebody emails and it doesn't need to be a book, but just like bullet points, it's like oh wow, okay, so you had this stuff going up. You joined the military. Some funky things happen in the military. You think you were in a deep underground military base. I'm like, oh yeah, let's do this.
No, that makes complete sense to me. And something that you touched on just briefly there, I wanted to bring up was your Dogman research, because now we're talking about you doing an actual investigation and you're putting it on YouTube, correct?
Yeah. So the public premiere is going to be on March 20th. Oh, you're the first one to get this. March 25th. Next month, 2022, at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube. It'll be on the Confessionals YouTube channel. But we are doing a VIP premiere, which is going to be on March 11th, 2 weeks prior, and that will be on Merkel.media. And people will be able to purchase their ticket. Basically, it's a one-time fee to access the private page on the website, and they'll be able to have access to that live premiere, VIP premiere. But yeah, it's coming up soon, and I'm really excited about it because so I'm a podcaster. Obviously, the reason why we're out there is because of the stories from my show, and I pull an audience and all that stuff. But I got a guy who used to shoot video for Glenn Beck at the Blaze. Like, he's a professional video guy. And then I have another guy who's done work with History Channel, Discovery Channel. He's a treasure hunter, and he's extremely good at drawing out the story and producing, like, I guess they call it cutting, like making the story, the visual story. And so he kind of produced the whole thing. And I'm telling you, it's going to be so professionally done. I'm so excited. It's something that I couldn't have done myself. So I'm really happy to have the team that I have.
Well, I got to ask you, without giving too much away, you're out there, you're doing the investigation, you're looking for a physical Dogman, and I'm assuming you're out there at night. Was there ever a moment where you were like, I am fucking scared?
Yeah, man. Like, I think I got about 35 minutes away from my house and I started getting scared. It's like, I got a 10-hour drive. See, here's what happened. I got a 10-hour drive to Kentucky from where I'm at in Philadelphia. And I'm driving, and I left early in the morning. It's about 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm almost out to the Pittsburgh area. And I'm listening to Tim Pool on YouTube. And it was during the month of October, and they were kind of like, they're doing their normal thing, but they had some, conversations about paranormal and creepy stuff. And they had a guy on called Dr. Shane Cashman, and he's actually working for Tim now on his own podcast. But he brought up this story. I forget how they got onto it, but he brought up this story that he was talking to a woman who was in a school of mystery. Now, schools of mysteries are very real. People don't believe they're real because they think, oh, that's Harry Potter stuff. Nope, it's real. Very, very real. There's about 1 or 2 in the world that is really actually well known. A lot of them are underground. You're not going to really find them. They don't advertise themselves. But they actually truly teach you witchcraft. They actually teach you how to do real witchcraft. And he was talking to one of these ladies and who was a student. And she told him that at one point in class, they were learning how to open up portals. And when they opened up a portal, things would come through. And she said one of the things that she saw come through a portal was an upright walking dog. And I'm driving to Kentucky to hunt a Dogman that now all of a sudden I'm like, shoot, what the heck am I getting myself into, man? So like, I was nervous. I was very nervous. And so I got down to Kentucky, kind of get a feel for the area. The very first day I'm down there, all the guys arrive. Once they arrive, the guy who brought us out, who shared his story on my show, episode 335, Dog versus Dogman, Kyle, he comes out. So we're all at the cabin, and we go out into the woods for the very first day. It's afternoon, just kind of showing us around to where his second encounter happened. He had 2 encounters. The first one is like, it's crazy. But so we're going through the woods, and we find a print. Now, Kyle is a tracker, like a real tracker. Other people call him in to track things. And we find a very large print. And one could say, well, maybe it's a cat print, like a mountain lion.
Yeah.
So one could say that, and we would say, very true. Kentucky says that they don't have mountain lions, but I don't believe that, just because Pennsylvania says the same thing, and I know there's mountain lions in Pennsylvania. So maybe it is a cat. But if it was a cat, it was a very, very large cat, in the sense that it would be bordering. It would have been a very large cat for the Pacific Northwest, which they typically get about 200 to 250 pounds out there. Very big. But what we found was like on the max level of that. Maybe more.
Wow.
But what we saw, it might have been a canine as well. And there's no way it was like a canine coyote, Yeah. So we find that print, and so that starts our day off. And in the woods while we're looking, and I think it was before we got to that print, something like knocked a tree down or something. Like we heard a tree come down and something scurry like away. It was crazy. But then that was just the start of it. I mean, we had some real bizarre paranormal things happen in the woods the coming days. And when at the location that we went to, where we were at, where this happened, we we went back at night because we're like, well, we might as well come back here at night, especially if Dogman's coming through portals. And and some things happened at night. It just, I'm not totally sure what I'm not sure what any of this stuff is, but the jury is so far out on Dogman, but I'm gotten more and more closer to the side of these cryptid creatures being both physical and metaphysical. I've never felt more confident saying that publicly than I do now. I'm not saying that's what they are, but I really feel that way. I'm okay being wrong. I mean, Rob, you know who I am. Like, I'm okay. I do not care. I just think out loud. If I'm wrong, cool. We're one step closer to truth then, you know? So, but that's kind of how I feel about it, especially with the experiences. I didn't even experience it. That's the annoyingly crazy thing about it. We were out in the woods, and I'm going up a hillside with Kyle. We were going into the woods to look for a water tank where the government sets up these man-made ponds in the middle of the woods to feed the animals so they don't come into the major lake where they can get shot by hunters a lot easier. Yeah. And we thought it'd be a good place to bait for a Dogman. We're going up the hillside, and all of a sudden my team's yelling at me, "Get back down here, get back down here." I'm like, "Ah!" So I'm running down and stuff, and we get there and stuff. "Did you hear that?" I was like, "No, what?" And they're like, "You didn't hear that?" "No, I didn't hear that." And they said that, I'll just tell you. They said that they saw and heard about 20, I would say probably about no more than 50 feet away from them, like a tree that you couldn't fit your arms around, very large tree, the entire thing just shaking violently back and forth, and everything around it's just shaking. And it happened twice. I didn't hear it, I didn't see it, but it happened twice right in front of them. Of course, the cameraman wasn't shooting at the moment. Oh man! But that's typical with this stuff. It's so crazy. Yeah. And then we go back to that location at night, and that kind of stuff happened again. It was just there's something out there in the Daniel Boone National Forest. I think there's some things out there, and I think that those woods hold a lot of stuff, a lot of secrets. And we were out there to find it. And we had experiences. Unfortunately, I didn't kill the dog, man. I wanted to, we were loaded, we were ready to rock. And I was like, man, we actually had a conversation. I said to the guys, if we actually kill one of these things, what's the next step? You know?
Yeah, right. Kyle, I remember him specifically from your show because I had also heard him on Dogman Encounters Radio. And when I heard him again on your show, even though I knew his story, I listened to it again because it was such a deep, dark, and you can tell he was telling the truth because he's emotional about it. There were times where he sounded like he was either about to cry or was crying. And that's when you know that somebody went through something heavy. And I could see why, that would spark interest in doing a YouTube investigation on the Dogman. But going forward, first, I guess my first question is actually, is this the first time you've done something like this?
No. I mean, on this level, yeah. Okay. Before I was a podcaster, I was just driving truck, and on weekends I would go hiking into the woods, off trail stuff. I never spent a week out in the woods hunting a Dogman, with cameras and loaded for, slaughterhouse, yeah. I mean, that was a new experience for sure. But I've done investigations before, but just not on that level. Definitely not on that level. So my next question then is, going forward, do you already have other things like this planned, or are you still in the idea stages, or is it stuff that you can't tell us about just yet? No, we definitely have locations. So when I was originally planning on going down there, Kyle told me, and I think it was on recording too, he's like, if you come down, you need to bring an army with you. And I'm like, say no more. And so I'm recruiting guys that I know have the artillery, Mm-hmm. And then slowly but surely those guys started dropping off. And then Kyle tells me that he's hesitant for me to bring so many guys because he doesn't really trust a whole lot of people. And so I'm thinking to myself, Kyle, I felt like leading up to that, when he said that, I was thinking, does he just want me to come down? I'm not going to be out in the woods by myself at night because he already told me he's not going to be out there. And I'm like, I can't just waste all this money that I've already invested on me just going and hanging out in the woods, live streaming on Facebook, you know?
Right, yeah.
And so, and then him and I had a more in-depth conversation, and he was a little nervous about too many guys. So, we brought 3 other guys, including myself. And moving forward, there's going to be an extra guy, which is my brother. He just couldn't come that time. But the original crew that I had slowly started dropping off to nothing. And I'm like, you got to be, and I'm like, I think I was like literally 2-3 weeks out from this trip, and I was like, you got to be kidding me, man. And I started connecting with some other guys and stuff, and I got the crew, Christian, Ward, and Joel. Those 3 guys showed up, and the chemistry we had was amazing. And I was like, I accidentally found the perfect team. And so moving forward, it's this crew, and we already had our meeting in the beginning of January about what we're going to be doing this year. Our goal is to do at least 2 other trips this year. I'm not going to say where we're planning on going, but I'll tell you this. One place I'm like 90% sure we can do, because the person that I'm going to be connecting with I know pretty well. The other place is closed to the public, and I might be able to get in there legally. And I think I'm going to be bringing... Are you familiar with Tinfoil Hat Podcast?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to be bringing Sam Tripley with me on that one.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
Yeah, so we're working on things, but we definitely are planning on making this a regular thing. I actually want to make this my new side hustle. Like, podcasting is my job now. So I want to make this documentary stuff my new side hustle. And one of my goals, actually my biggest goal with it, is to do it well enough and big enough on a big enough level where every single guy that's coming on these trips with me are able to do this full time. Because I think if we can all be in the same boat as where I'm at now, where my job is to create content, I think we could create some really cool stuff. And so my goal is to have us all make some really cool content together and get it really popular and turn it into a full-time job for these guys, where I'm about to move to Tennessee. They're going to move down to Tennessee with me. We're going to work together, and we're just going to, create that's really cool stuff.
That's huge, and that's great for like us paranormal nerds out there who are always looking for more content and more, investigations and more things to watch and more things to listen to. Like, it's exciting to me just being a fan of those things to hear that. But curving away from the Dogman and the actual investigations for a second and just talking about your podcast, have you ever heard certain stories that just blow your mind because you have like a guest tell you a story, and then maybe like a year later another guest comes on and tells you a story, and they see the exact same thing, and they're like on 2 different total parts of the world? And that's got to be a crazy experience for you, because you're sitting there hearing story after story, and then all of a sudden the same maybe entity or maybe UFO or whatever it could be is the exact same description from somebody else.
Dude, yes. So one, I would say, and I just had 3 ideas in my head, now I'm down to 2. I knew that was going to happen. But it's back now. I got it. So we'll see how long it lasts. But so I had a couple times, at least 2 times, I think 3 times, but I think they were all women, talk about their paranormal experiences, and they would talk about how leading up to the paranormal... Actually, I think what it was is 2 people on the show, 1 person in email. But leading up to the paranormal experience, they knew it was going to happen because each one of them heard a whooshing sound, and they each described it as it sounding like a windmill turning in the wind. Like just woof, woof, woof.
Oh, wow.
And then all of a sudden, boom, the paranormal thing happens, and it's like extreme paranormal activity. So there's that. Then there's okay, so I gotta be careful how I go about this because I'm still working on this story. So I was contacted by a guy to be interviewed last year, and it was in August we were supposed to interview. I canceled the interview. I forget why. I think I was going on vacation or something like that. And to be honest with you, his email was very, very brief, not very, like, it wasn't getting me jumping out of my seat.
Gotcha.
It was very vague. He had one experience. I knew it was going to be like a 10, 15, maybe 20-minute interview. Not that, how do I say this? So I knew it wasn't going to be a full show. I was going to have to make it a 2-part show. And the actual experience was just, like, interesting, but it was nothing that was, like, I've never heard before,
Yeah.
But I believe that those experiences still need to be shared because there might be just one thing that somebody says that in their experience that somebody else could relate to, and all of a sudden their light bulb goes on. I can't tell you how many emails I get like that. So I'm just a believer that if you had a paranormal experience and you want to share it with me, we're going to talk about it, And so he was in that kind of category. I was just like, well, we're going to talk about it, even though this is going to be a short one, whatever. So I didn't feel bad about canceling. Is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. I didn't feel bad about canceling. I was like, we'll get to it another time. He can spare 20 minutes somewhere. Well, we reschedule, and I sit down to do the interview with him. And he starts out with the story that he emailed about. But before he started out, he's like, I got some other stuff I need to talk to you about as well. And I was like, oh, okay. I said, what is it? And he's like, well, it involves my friend and a little bit of my brother, kind of ties them all together, and they don't really know each other. They don't know each other at all. And like, he's kind of like being cryptic, and he's like, I didn't tell you that about this stuff in the email because, to be honest with you, I feel like if I would have told you in the email, I wouldn't even got an email back. You would have thought I'm crazy. And I'm like, bro, you're on the right show for crazy, man. Like I look for things that sound insane because I believe that reality is far crazier than we can even fathom.
For sure.
And so now I'm like, okay, well, maybe we can get a whole interview out of this guy, And he starts telling the story, the one he emailed about, that kind of ties into everything else. And I'm just going to say this. There are a ton of things that he shared with me on the interview that I've been able to fact check that actually have happened. And it will change your perspective on what is reality. It will force you to question what is reality. It will force you to question, what do you believe? It will force you to say, do I believe this guy, or am I just going to stick my head in the sand and pretend he didn't say what is really hard to debunk? Mm-hmm. It's so deep. It's so detailed. It's so huge that I'm literally in the process of creating a whole new podcast just for this storyline, because it's just it's too big to ruin. If I put it on the Confessionals, it will be ruined because it will be chopped up and spread out, and you're not going to be able to find it. It's just going to be its own show. So with some of the things that he said on this interview, though, relate to other people that I've had on my show. A lot of different types of things that he would say. I'm like, I've heard that before. And I'll tell you one episode, I think it's 305. I had a guy on, his name was JR. He was a 1% motorcycle guy. He was in a 1% motorcycle gang that was really I don't know if people understand, the 1%ers, the reason why they're 1%ers is because they're the 1% of all the motorcycle gangs that are the tough bad guys. They're the bad guys. And he was so bad that he got kicked out of his gang. So, and he comes on the show and he tells me this experience where when he got kicked out, he started his own petty thief burglary gang. And what they would do is they would go into people's homes, steal the stuff, but they would take it to the curb on trash day and put it next to the trash cans, where he would pay somebody else to come and pick it up. That way, if they did get caught, he didn't take anything off the property. It was just breaking and entering. He had this whole system thing. And so obviously he gets caught. He's running from the police, and he winds up staying on a property for 9 months. And while he was on this property for 9 months, deep out in the middle of nowhere, really bizarre things happened. He saw something twice that he said reminded him of the Predator. It was translucent, but he could see it, but it was translucent. And It was huge. And it scared him so bad that the second time he saw it, he called his mom and said, come pick me up. And she's like, the police have been at the house 3 times this week. And he's like, I don't care. I'm not staying on this property any longer. Come pick me up. She came, picked him up, and he got arrested and put in jail for, I think it was 18 months, I think it was. Mm-hmm. But he chose to go to jail versus staying on this property. Wow. So that was the first hour. And then we did an overtime segment where we got more into post-jail life, his spiritual journey, and it had a lot to do with, he was being recruited by a satanic coven or something, and these people were popping up all over in his life and stuff. And I think he almost joined, if I remember correctly. But he describes an experience where this is not on the public show, the first hour. This is the members only overtime. He was having sex with his girlfriend, and instantaneously he was just gone somewhere else, just gone. He said, dude, this felt so real. This was real. I was just gone. And he was walking through this tunnel, cave, cavern thing. And he comes into this big room. And as he comes into this big room, he hears a voice saying, you're now entering the throne room. And he walks into this throne room, and there's a man in a black suit. And this man, long story short, is trying to recruit him to come work for him. And he's like, no, man, I don't want anything to do with you. And he's trying to throw stuff at him. Like he said, just like he was instantaneously gone, he's in this throne room, and all of a sudden he's instantaneously on a bed, and there's like 3 women, and they're just having a great time with him. And so like he's saying absolutely, like he's saying no. He's like, just put no. So eventually he's back in his body. He wakes up, right? So like he says he wakes up, and so in my head I'm like, oh, so it felt real, but it was a dream. You know, that's kind of just how I was like feeling about it,
right.
Even though it felt so real and so detailed. And he said that his girlfriend smacked him and said, don't you ever do that to me again. He's like, what are you talking about? She's like, the stuff you did to me last night, don't ever do that again. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Wow.
And so like it was just this bizarre thing, right? Well, this guy that I was just telling you about that I'm doing this whole other show with, he talks about this, but not for him. Other people that he's come across that have been in this situation where, in order to, don't say that, I can't give too much away, but other people walking through these caves and entering into these big rooms where they're met by entities, and there's actually a book that's written about all this stuff. It's actually a real book. And wow. I have it in my house. It's not even for print anymore. There's only 15 copies available on the entire earth. I got one in my house, man. My wife read the whole thing. But in the book, they talk about the throne room. And they talk about this man in a suit approaching this one person in the book about working for him. And he does. And then there's another person in the book who got approached, and they said no. Actually, it's not even in the book. He told me that there was another person that got approached, and then his brother got approached, and we're there's characters in this that people would recognize, like ancient gods, and like it's so entailed and deep, but it just has a very direct correlation to other episodes I've had. And so like I've been connecting all these dots and stuff with this one storyline. I can't tell you how many times I'll sit down to edit an interview that I did like 8 months ago, and they'll say something on the interview. I'm like, holy crap, that actually makes a lot of sense with this this other story. So I don't know if any of that makes sense and if it's any good for your show, but I'll just say, yeah, I've definitely had people say the same thing that they've experienced.
That's intense, and I'm actually looking forward to that. You'll have to let me know when that's dropping, and you said it's going to be its own thing, so I'll be on the lookout for it. Yeah. Now, I have a couple last questions for you before I let you go here, and my first one is going to be, did you ever imagine that the Confessionals would be such a huge, huge show? Because you really do have quite a following.
Yeah, I'll tell you this. I did imagine it, but I didn't believe my imagination.
Yep.
I started the podcast with a very strong desire, belief, and inclination that this was going to turn into something. And I drove my tractor trailer all day by myself, game planning, thinking about how I can make the show better, planning episodes, working on my intro. I would be in my truck by myself, talking to myself, trying to work on my fluctuations in my voice, because if you ever listen to early episodes, I would come on like this, I'd be like, welcome to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Tony Merkel. And it's just like calm, relaxed, laid back, and that's not me. Like, I'm an energy guy. Mm-hmm. And so like, I worked on a lot of stuff. I obsessed over it. So I imagined greatness. I wanted to be the paranormal, the Joe Rogan of paranormal podcasts. And I just had all these huge goals, but I didn't believe it was going to happen, because that doesn't happen for that doesn't happen for me, right? Everybody says that, right? That happens for other people, not me. And all I can say is I spent a lot of time telling myself that, especially in my moments of doubt, that this will never happen if I don't try my hardest. And if I try my hardest, it still probably will never happen. But the best thing about that is at least I don't have the regret of wondering, what if I actually tried harder? And so I worked my ass off. For my first year, I didn't have any kids. My wife got pregnant in March. We started in January. She got pregnant in March. My son was born in December. So my first year, no kids. I obsessed for an entire year straight, working my butt off. And I just kept going with the kids for 4 years. I podcasted for almost 5 years before I went full time. But I worked. And I just imagined like one day being able to actually turn an income where it was a full-time thing. And I had friends who were doing it full-time, and I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. Keep going, you know? But I'm telling you, man, if you asked me, did you believe it was going to happen? Absolutely not. No way. But, you know,
well,
I'm happy it did.
I got to say to you then, congratulations, because, man, podcasting is no joke, and people don't realize how much work that we put into these things. And sometimes it could be thankless. So congratulations to you for that, because I love the Confessionals, and I know that any of my listeners right now who don't already listen, I'm telling you all right now, please subscribe. And if you're listening to my show, you will definitely like the Confessionals, because you know we like to get creepy and spooky on here too. So I want you to, before you go, plug all your social media and the podcast, YouTube, everything. Just tell everybody where they could find you and every piece of information about your show.
All right, here we go. For the next hour, you're all mine. So, so first of all, before I get into that, I just got to tell you, man, because I've been wanting to tell you this, but I was saving it for when we record for your show. My realtor in Tennessee, her husband is Glenn Jacobs Kane.
You're kidding.
I kid you not.
Oh my God.
I kid you not. I was down there 2 weeks ago, and I sat down in the office, met the realtor that she was having work with me, and we were talking for like 2 hours and just having good conversation. And she mentions about her husband having, messed up knees, but he did have a tryout for the Bears. But then when they found out he had no ACLs, they said, get lost. And then she said, like, I forget how she said, but she said it so smooth and like nonchalant. She's like, so he wound up doing professional wrestling. I was like, oh really? And she said, yeah. I said, WWE? She said, yeah. And I was like, really? I was, who was he? And she go, and I'm not a huge WWE wrestling guy, but when I was younger, there were guys that I knew, and
yeah.
Kane was one of them. She says Kane, and I was like, you gotta be kidding. He's like, I know Stone Cold, The Rock, Kane, Undertaker, Hardy Boys, and Cactus Jack, like, those are the guys I know. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And so she was serious, and she showed me pictures and stuff, and he's the mayor of Knox County.
Yes.
And yeah, so like, anyways, small world. I'll plug my stuff here and get off your show. So I would say for people, if you're looking for a paranormal podcast, check out the Confessionals. We're on every podcast playing app. Just look up the Confessionals, not confessional, the Confessionals, and you'll see. I have over 400 episodes, and I would say check out the confessionalspodcast.com. And we're on every social media platform. I hang out on Instagram a lot more than any other place. And so check me out on Instagram, The Confessionals Podcast. And if you're interested in this Dogman documentary, hit up Merkel.media. That's the website, Merkel.media, not .com, Merkel.media. And you'll see the instructions on how to access the Dogman documentary for VIP. If you want to wait for the free version, you just got to wait till March 25th, and it'll be on YouTube. The YouTube channel is The Confessionals. You can look it up that way as well. But pretty much all I can say is Google me and you'll find me.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for doing my show, man. I really appreciate it. This was so interesting to me, so I know that my listeners are going to feel the same way, and I'm really looking forward to that last story that you were talking about as well. So keep me in the loop on that, because that sounds crazy already, and you only gave us a little teaser.
Yeah, man, I can't wait to share it with the world, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thanks again, man. All right, rockers, once again, Tony Merkel. Oh, man, I really loved that interview. I hope you guys go check out the Confessionals. I'm sure a lot of you probably already do or already know it. So, make sure you're subscribed and be on the lookout for the Dogman documentary. Oh, my God, that's going to be so much fun. I can't wait. I think Bigfoot and Dogman and Loch Ness and cryptids in general are such an interesting phenomenon. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to watch it. I hope you guys will, too. And be sure to follow ABAO Pod across the board on social media. That goes for Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you'd like to give me a follow as well, totally up to you guys, but I am at Robbie_Vegas_official on Instagram and Robbie_Vegas_ on Twitter. So check it out. Let me know what you guys think of these episodes. And, interact with us. We try and do polls, we try and have fun, and we will interact as much as we possibly can. So get on those, let us know what you think, and we will catch you guys next week.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.